So I opened Discord. First channel, this video. Second channel, somehow the same video again. Someone had spammed it across several channels. At that point, I'm just sitting there thinking, bro, what is one of my former team members doing? Before you form a final opinion, please listen to both sides. Please keep the discussion respectful and do not personally attack Aqua or anyone else involved. Aqua's video includes some valid criticism. However, in several places, that criticism is taken much further than the information shown actually supports. Even though the game's most important gameplay systems were shown publicly, the video gives very little weight to the real development work that had already been shown. Even though the voluntary work was publicly described as unpaid, the video still raises the question of why the team members were not paid. The long development pause is also connected to the accusation that Time Troop was a scam from the beginning. My Roblox reward games are also presented as scams, even though the video does not properly explain how the UGC reward systems work. The requirements were shown clearly, and successful reward claims can be verified. I am not going to pretend that I handled everything correctly. My communication was not ideal, updates became less frequent, and I continued to describe the project as nearly finished without showing enough of its current state. Because of that, I contributed to people losing trust in Time Troop. I take responsibility for that. This video will address several of the accusations that were raised, along with a few related topics that have come up since. What was actually shown publicly? The development work that had already been shown publicly is mentioned in the video, but it plays almost no role in the accusations that follow. The most important gameplay systems were publicly shown on the Time Troop YouTube channel. Throughout this video, the gameplay footage will show Time Troop's development chronologically, from the earliest public footage to its current state. A completed demo chapter was also shown publicly. The fact that this footage is now old is a valid criticism. It is understandable to ask what happened afterward, and why there was no proper update for such a long time. However, the footage proves that the gameplay systems and the demo chapter that were shown actually existed. The old demo does not prove that progress continued, but the lack of newer footage also does not prove that the project was a scam. Those are two different things. The later chapters, additional characters, story content, and other parts of the game were mostly not shown publicly because they were intended to be surprises. During the development of a game, not every later piece of content is shown in advance, especially when many gameplay systems and a complete demo chapter have already been shown publicly. Even so, I will go into more detail about some of this content near the end of the video and show more of it. Based on the development status at the time, the project was far along in many areas. That is why I described it as nearly finished. What was missing publicly were more recent looks at the project's later development. Placeholder models. The models shown in older Time Troop footage were placeholders used during development. This was also communicated at the time. For the final version, they were supposed to be replaced with models purchased for the project. Some of the placeholder models originally came from official Skylanders games. According to Aqua himself, he made some of these model files from the games available. The video criticizes the fact that these particular models were neither created or purchased by me. That is exactly why they were only intended as placeholders and were supposed to be replaced before a final release. The team and Patreon. Another criticism is that people contributed to Time Troop without being paid using Patreon funds. Time Troop was not presented as a normal, paid development studio. It was a community project rather than a conventional professional studio. Most contributors worked on smaller individual parts instead of acting as full-time developers. The public FAQ clearly stated that community contributions were unpaid. It said, "Will I get money for working on the team? No, you will not get any money for working. However, you can have a say in many decisions and let your own creativity flow into them." Aqua correctly mentions this FAQ in his video, but still strongly questions why the volunteer contributors were not paid. The FAQ shows that these roles had been publicly described as unpaid from the beginning. This arrangement can be criticized. However, it was publicly known, and participation was voluntary and unpaid. Members of the community could contribute ideas, concept art, or smaller creative contributions. I did most of the actual development work myself. It is true that team members have not been given much to do during the past few years because active development was paused or because there was little remaining work in certain areas. I should have communicated that more clearly. The Patreon was intended to help cover part of the project's development costs, including 3D models purchased for the project. The use of AI was mainly used for video production and only to a limited extent in the actual project. An early AI-generated voice was used because there was no voice actor available at the time. The technology was much worse back then, which is why it may sound unusual today. AI was also used to create rough prototypes for redesigns. These prototypes were not used directly in the game. They only served as starting points while older material was being reworked. When I explained that AI had been used for temporary placeholder ideas that I completely rewrote, the response was to ask why I would even mention AI and whether I understood damage control. Instead of addressing the limited use I had actually described, it was suggested that I could simply offload all of the work to AI and remove the need for human workers. This is another example of information I shared being interpreted in the most negative possible way. I mentioned AI because I was directly asked about it and chose to be transparent, not because the project itself had been handed over to AI. I understand that many people do not like AI. You are free to criticize that decision. The Roblox reward games Aqua's video also mentions my Roblox games in connection with the scam accusation. You do not have to like these games. You can criticize their style. That is your opinion. Calling the reward games scams is not a matter of personal taste when the promised rewards are real and are actually given out. I understand the concern, but the reward games themselves are fully functional and the requirements are shown clearly. UGC items have a high value and cost to produce, so those rewards naturally require more time or progress. I can provide a page showing successful reward claims. For the scam accusation, the main question is whether the promised rewards were actually given out. This evidence directly shows that the rewards were real and were actually given out. The reward games were presented as scams, even though successful reward claims can be verified. That weakens the credibility of that conclusion. You can still dislike the games. That does not make the rewards fake. The community's reaction. After Aqua's video was published, the strongest accusations from it were quickly repeated as facts in the comments. Some commenters openly said that they had not previously known about Time Troop or the Skylanders fan game community. Shortly afterward, they still described the project as a confirmed scam and described me as a confirmed scammer. Many of these comments repeat the accusations without providing any evidence of their own. This can still seriously harm the project. It shows how quickly accusations like these can spread when many viewers initially know only one side of the story. One valid unresolved issue was the lack of recent images showing the project's later development. Here are current images from the project. The current status of Time Troop. Time Troop is currently paused, but it has not been cancelled. Health issues and serious concentration problems currently make it more difficult for me to work on a project this complex. I had already mentioned this in an earlier news post. I am not going to announce a new release date or promise a timeline that I may not be able to keep. I still want to release Time Troop once my health allows me to properly continue and complete development. Until then, I understand why some people remain skeptical. Skepticism is valid. However, assumptions should not be presented as proven facts. The long pause and my communication mistakes do not prove that Time Troop was planned as a scam from the beginning. The most important gameplay systems and a demo chapter were shown publicly. It was publicly explained that community contributions were unpaid. Successful reward claims from my Roblox games can be verified. You do not have to support me, and you do not have to agree with every decision I have made. I only ask that you form your own opinion based on the information shown. I also want to thank everyone who continues to support me and Time Troop despite everything. Thank you for listening to my side.